Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast, and this is going to be an Avengers Age of Ultron retro review just ahead of the release of WandaVision. We kind of wanted to go back and take a look at this movie, watched it over the Christmas week, and kind of one of those things of I forgot how much I enjoyed this movie. I kind of got to it, I was like, there was so much packed into it and so much hints as well of the future that you didn't necessarily know about, whether or not they planned it. But I was like, I liked it so much I fired up the Winter Soldier strip, and then I realized, why am I watching it in the wrong order? But nevertheless,
Yeah,
I really enjoyed watching it again.
it was fun to see it again, especially as you said, with the things that we didn't catch the first time around. Whether or not Marvel actually
Yeah,
had them planned out or not is irrelevant. They built on them. That said, I do remember it's the weakest of the Avengers movies,
yeah,
and actually it's one of the weaker MCU movies in general. However, a weak MCU movie is still pretty good in most cases, and this one did get better with time.
and also, I mean, the amount of heroes that are involved in it, um, and I still loved Ultron, James Snyder. I mean, I love him. Liked him for ages, and in the Blacklist, I just the way he does stuff, um, I just love Ultron. He's such a it's the way he talks and stuff. There's just something about him which I just think he's fascinating as a villain. I really hope they do bring him back. They got a way of bringing him back because
I
it's so
mean,
cool.
yeah, talking about bringing him back, I would have to say if I had a complaint about the movie, well, I actually do have
Mm.
several complaints about the movie, but the biggest one I have is like, um, he just magically gets defeated at the end. It's like he's spread out over the entire internet, but that's okay. Vision has literally Deus Ex Machina did, and he's not on the internet anymore. You're just like, huh? What?
Yeah,
That's not how networks work.
no. But no, I really just like Ultron as a villain. He just and it's that kind of thing of essentially he thinks he's the hero at that point. He's following his programming to think that the cause of all the problems in the world is actually the Avengers rather than, and it's like he's trying to get rid of them in order to, because humans are, it's just a waste of time. The Earth is better off without them. And it's that kind of thing, like, from that point of view of how he's looking at it, it does make sense. And there's so much, I mean, there's so things of, they go to Wakanda, they're setting that all up in advance, and Claus, I mean, it's a shame they didn't do more with him, but you look back now and it's so integrated with everything that we've seen.
Yeah, well, Claw is
Yeah.
certainly one of them. We have the Wanda story building up, Vision getting created. We have, I think
Even
Hulk.
just the look in them,
Sorry,
even
say
just the
again.
way, even just at the point where she looks at him,
Mm,
at a certain
just for a
point of
moment.
like, just a little, and just it just lingers just enough just to set it up. Things like that are very, very well done.
And then we also have set up for things like Hulk disappearing at the
Yeah.
end of the movie, and of course this would lead into Civil War
Mm.
down the road, things like that. And I guess while these are all really cool, it does mean that the movie never really felt like its own movie. A lot of
Yeah.
it is setting up for future stuff. And we knew that at the time. We didn't know how much, but we knew that several of the pieces of that he's going off to do Planet Hulk. We're setting up WandaVision over here, not the show, the
Yeah.
pairing of the two characters. Um, you know, Thor, they obviously were setting up Ragnarok, although it didn't quite tie in with what Ragnarok ended up being, but you could
Mm.
see they were playing around with that. Civil War was getting set up. So it felt like there were large sections of the movie which weren't really for the movie,
Yeah.
which was distracting at times.
Yeah, I think it's, again, look at, with hindsight, you look back on it and go, at the time it's all just hints, and you're like, "Oh, where's that going?" Of course, now you're looking back, and go, "Oh, well, it really was setting." It was a if it was if you were looking at it as like one big epic movie, this was very much right. We're just setting everything up for future. It was a mid season finale kind of thing of like we're rebooting a little bit.
Well,
I just yeah,
it's very much middle of the trilogy syndrome,
yeah,
counting Infinity War and
yeah.
Endgame as a single entity,
Mm.
obviously.
But also, one of the things I was really enjoying about this one was the idea of kind of like you know, you think of that movie. We had War Machine, you know, we had Falcon, we had Winter Soldier, we had, you know, well, not so much Winter Soldier, but we had Vision, you know, WandaVision. And it's like, how many of them are getting Disney Plus series this year? It's like, this kind of feels like that point of like, right, we're taking nearly half the cast and giving them their own series to give them more stuff because they aren't big enough characters on their own. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about this one. Going, you know, we're going to see so much more of these characters that we've really not seen so much of because, you know, so many other characters got the excitement level up.
Yeah, there was definitely that sense too. Like you get to the end of the movie and they've got the new Avengers lineup with, you know, War Machine and Scarlet Witch and so on. And you're like, oh, it's a new generation. But even with the movies that moved forward with that, they really still felt like secondary characters. Like even in Ant-Man, you've got a quick appearance by Falcon because he's guarding the base for a little bit. And you feel like, yeah, but he's still the second stringer. He's not Captain America. He's not Iron Man. He's Falcon. And then you get on to other movies, and they still end up being the side characters to the main characters of Captain America, Iron Man. Even Black Panther kind of jumped over the top of several of them.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of nice looking forward. Oh, we're going to get a lot more. We're kind of going to get their follow up, because they were all important. You know, Vision was such an important character in this movie. You know, he was created in the way. I mean, I love the fact of like they set up the whole hammer thing. You know, that, you know, like, you know, he picks it up and hands it on something. You know, the instant they all recognize that he has to be good. He has to be amazing because they aren't even that good. You know, that and instantly they set that up and perfectly.
Well, speaking of the hammer, of course, Captain America doing the hammer bit. I loved that when you watch the movie by itself, you're just like, oh, it's a one-off joke. He was able to wiggle the hammer a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it pays off at the end of Endgame with that great scene. And I don't know if that was intentional. I could suspect that one was intentional. They always knew that at some point he was going to get it. And maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. I
don't
know.
I feel like they did.
Yeah.
But in any event, I liked how they took that one little thing. It's a one-off joke.
Yeah.
In Age of Ultron, literally only a couple of seconds, and it turns into this great scene over in Endgame.
Yeah, and I think it's I mean, I always felt this Age of Ultron. It was one of those things. It kind of got, I wouldn't say got slammed on a little bit at the time for being maybe having too much in it. I can see how that worked out. Too many characters, too much going on. It's just a shame they killed off Quicksilver because I still think he would have been such a. I'm really hoping WandaVision brings him back and the original actor because I'd love to see him actually kind of, you know, do a little bit more with it.
It would be weird to see him now. I saw that actor in Tenet this past week. Actually, he's in there and he looks completely different. Like completely different body frame, everything. It would be very strange to see him show up. Which isn't to say I don't want him to. Just saying it's going to be a bit of a change there. But yeah, it's. I remember when it came out, and you had this combination of the clear sense that it was more important for it to set up other points than to have its own point.
Yeah.
Ultron was kind of weak as a villain. I like Ultron quite a bit, and I felt it was he was kind of wasted on this movie. I would have liked him to have had more. And continue with Spader. I thought his voice was a little bit weird, but I do like Ultron a lot. Anyway, the other point being, it had to live up to the expectations of the original Avengers, which of course broke box office records and was huge. And everyone was like, this is the greatest thing of all time, or at least the greatest thing of 2012. And it was not the Avengers. It was a setup for Civil War and Infinity War and Black Panther and all this stuff.
Yeah, because it always kind of feels like kind of Civil War became the proper second Avengers movie. Avengers, you know, it's like you look at like we've had 4 Avengers movie and Age of Ultron kind of slides into that, like, yeah, that's the weakest of the 4. But also you chuck like Civil War into it, and also like every Marvel movie is becoming more and more bigger with more and more characters overflowing. You know, when the Avengers movie first came out, it was so special seeing them even just together in the same scene. And then you look at how many people are in that, you know, the barroom scene, you know, and like, this is like, you know, it's still, you look back at it, you know, we've got so used to this now. Marvel can do this all the time, all day long, just randomly drop characters in and out of their movies and their series, and we don't think it was like at the time it was still such an impressive thing.
That's true. With the exception of the Avengers itself, by this point, we weren't really getting those crossovers between characters. I mean, like the biggest one that I can think of was Captain America showing up in Thor, and it wasn't even Captain America. It was Loki pretending to be Captain America. It really wasn't until after Age of Ultron that we started to get the major crossover stuff. Civil War being like the benchmark up until Infinity War and Endgame. But even things like Ant-Man, where with Falcon showing up, that they're like, oh, we got Falcon for like a minute and a half, and that was great. And now it's
you wouldn't even notice. I mean, but also, for Ragnarok, we had so many, we had Strange and Hulk and Thor and everyone together. But I just feel like Age of Ultron, I kind of watched it and I was like, that's a good movie. I got to the end of it. I thought, I really enjoyed watching it again. And that was, sometimes when you go back and watch these things, it's like, no, I watched that one. I'm so ready for WandaVision. Just like really helped set that up for me. I was just going, it reminded me of who they are, where they've come from, but also because Vision really kind of never really got a lot of attention. We had like one or two scenes of him in Infinity War, but we really didn't see much more of him really.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is when he dies or is killed in Infinity War, it's not quite as impactful because his character arc never comes through. He's in this movie, he's in Civil War, but even in Civil War, his biggest scene isn't even really about him. It's about him accidentally shooting War Machine as they're running away, and it's like he doesn't have a character arc yet. And WandaVision is hopefully. It should kind of retroactively give us a reason to care for him dying at the end of Infinity War and not coming back in Endgame.
Or he's back. He's back full time.
Well, I'm assuming that by the end of this, the end of WandaVision, he will have returned to the universe in some form. Maybe not the form we know him in, but maybe in some form. Then again, maybe not.
There's a lot of talk of it being the first season, even on the trailer that dropped yesterday. They refer to it as the first season, which is always like, okay, maybe not. It's not a one-off, which is always a good thing. But I really enjoyed Age of Ultron watching it again. It's that hard thing. Like, when you rank them, it's not so high up, but I really enjoyed it. It's a real fun movie.
It's got some good fight scenes in it. It's got some good action scenes. It's got a lot of good character moments. Them hanging out at the top of Avengers Tower before Ultron really starts breaking out, and them just kind of being people. Yeah, it's a really good sequence. I think in order to really appreciate it, you do have to strip away the expectations that came with it being the sequel to Avengers. I think that's easier now. Yeah, that we've seen what's come. We've got Infinity War, we've got Endgame, we've got Civil War. So we can see everything that came out of Age of Ultron, and you don't have to have the expectation that you're getting Avengers Redux. And you get to appreciate all those little threads, and you get to know, something did come of this, and if you're like, Thor's going nuts. What's going on with Thor? You can pop in Thor Ragnarok immediately after, or something like that. Yeah. So it aged really well. But I also still remember that kind of general disappointment that was felt when we first saw it. And we're like, well, it's not what we wanted for an Avengers sequel, but it has gotten better with time.
Yeah, definitely would recommend watching it again. Or if you're a Marvel fan, you're just gonna go for it. But really enjoyed this one. The perfect setup for WandaVision. So if you're going to be watching something before WandaVision, this is probably a good way of kind of jumping into that one, and maybe then you could kind of jump into Civil War afterwards, kind of lead up to it. But nevertheless, let me know in the comments below what you think of Avengers Age of Ultron. Get a huge thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon and YouTube as well for your support. As remember, they get access to these episodes a little bit earlier than anybody else. And on that, guys, thank you very much for watching. See you guys soon. Later.